Is this the end you never imagined? HYBE finally speaks up, exposing the facts that have been hidden about Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship. However, why did Jungkook's surprising decision at the end of the joint project contract lead to one name, Taehyung? Is this just a misunderstanding, or is there something much deeper, which has been tightly closed all this time for the sake of the perfect image? No one predicted that the collaboration of two of BTS's biggest stars, Taehyung and Jungkook, who had been looking solid in front of the camera, would end in such a tumultuous decision. It all started at the end of the contract for a major project that is predicted to be one of HYBE's most ambitious works this year. The project not only combined two outstanding talents, but also tied their big names in one creative vision. However, when everyone was waiting for the grandiose closing celebration, shocking news broke out. Jungkook decided to step down. Not just retreating, but retreating with reasons that lead to Taehyung. Many wonder, how can a friendship that has been established for more than a decade be shaken just because of one incident? However, behind the scenes, this story turned out to be much more complicated. According to an unnamed internal source, the root of the problem started from one seemingly simple moment: a meeting at HYBE's headquarters. Meeting to discuss the final stages of their project. A meeting that, according to Jungkook, should have been attended by both. But what happens is that Taehyung attends it alone. The question is, why didn't Taehyung tell Jungkook about the meeting? Is this just a small omission or a deliberate decision? HYBE finally spoke up, but not with a reassuring answer. Their official statements leave even more question marks. Each artist has the freedom to manage the project's internal communications at their own convenience. A sentence that sounds diplomatic, but for many ARMY, it is like confirming that there is indeed a deliberately created distance between the two. What struck the public even more was the way Jungkook expressed his disappointment. In one of the interviews recorded by the media, he said, "Sometimes silence is louder than words." The sentence was the subject of heated speculation on fan forums. Is he talking about Taehyung? Is the absence of an invitation to a meeting a form of silence he meant? Taehyung himself, when met outside the training schedule, only gave a faint smile. "There are things I can't explain right now," he said briefly, then got into the car. This reaction just muddied the atmosphere. Many judged Taehyung to have chosen silence not because he didn't care, but because there was something bigger he was harboring, something that might, if revealed, shake more than just their relationship. For HYBE, the project is a big bet, and every step of the artist is closely watched by the media as well as investors. However, is it for the sake of maintaining the image they are willing to let one of their most important members feel neglected? Behind all the speculation, one thing is indisputable: Jungkook's decision to step down was not an instant decision. This is an accumulation of a sense of disappointment, uncertainty, and perhaps a sense of loss of confidence. Another source revealed that Jungkook had actually been waiting for news of the meeting since morning. He was waiting for a message, a call, or even just a short chat from Taehyung. But the message never came. All he got were photos of the meeting circulating on social media, showing Taehyung sitting with HYBE's creative team, discussing the final concept of their project without her. Imagine what it would be like seeing a partner who has been called a soulmate on stage live an important moment of the project with someone else, while he is not even told HYBE is now at a crossroads. They could have covered up the real reason behind Jungkook's departure, but the K-pop world is already too smart to be fooled. ARMY demands transparency. They want to know, is this just a communication error, or is there a much more serious conflict? Is Taehyung deliberately not telling Jungkook in order to protect himself from something bigger, or is this the beginning of an inevitable split? The harsh reality is that the answers to all those questions may not come as quickly as expected. But one thing is clear: the relationship between Jungkook and Taehyung is now at the most fragile point in their career history. And as always, in the intrigue-filled world of Korean entertainment, silence often speaks louder than official clarification. Since the news of Jungkook's departure from the project with Taehyung spread, the Korean entertainment world has never really calmed down. Every media, from official news portals to fanbase accounts on social media, is vying to uncover the hidden facts behind a decision that for some seems sudden, but for those who observe the movements of these two idols, has been smelled for a long time. Jungkook, who has always been known as a perfectionist and loyal to his teammates, rarely makes decisions for no apparent reason. He's not the type to leave a project just because of ego or a small mismatch. However, this time his normally warm face actually turned cold every time the topic about the project came up. Internal sources said that on the day of the meeting at HYBE's office, Jungkook had actually been preparing since morning. He has already chosen clothes, prepared notes, even thought of some new ideas for the final concept, but hour after hour passed, and the official invitation that the project manager usually sends never reached him. He tried to contact one of the staff, but only got an ambiguous answer. I guess Taehyung already told you." The answer immediately made Jungkook speechless. Not long after, he opens social media and finds photos of Taehyung sitting in a boardroom with HYBE's creative team, talking about their project without her. The question arose in his head: did Taehyung deliberately not update, or is this pure negligence? And if on purpose, for what? Has Taehyung already decided something without his consent? To the public, who sees only from the outside, all this may seem like a small mistake. However, for two artists who are working on a project together, the decision to attend the meeting without colleagues is a big signal, a signal that there is a difference in vision or even distrust. Taehyung himself, when interviewed a few days later, was seen choosing words carefully. "There are things that are too complicated to discuss here. I don't want to make the situation worse," he said, looking down. But precisely from the expression on his face, the fans felt that there was a burden that he harbored. Is it the burden of regret, or is it the belief that his decision was right? No one knows for sure. HYBE finally issued an official statement that sounded very formal, even too formal. "We value every decision our artists make regarding their involvement in internal projects. Sometimes there are disagreements that require further discussion." The sentence seemed to signal that there is indeed an ongoing problem, but they chose to wrap it up with diplomatic language. I end the army forums. The debate was heated. Some defended Taehyung, saying that maybe he got a sudden notice and didn't have time to contact Jungkook. Others defended Jungkook, considering that there was no compelling reason not to tell the project partners, especially if it was an important moment. The more extreme even began to speculate that this was HYBE's tactic to separate the two for the sake of a specific agenda. This tension was compounded by rumors that at the meeting, Taehyung and the creative team discussed the possibility of changing the concept of the project, changes large enough to make some of Jungkook's original ideas no longer relevant. If these rumors are true, then Jungkook was not only not invited, but also not involved in decisions that directly affected his work. For an artist who always gives 100% to each project, this is a crushing blow. Moreover, the project is not just an ordinary work. It is a work that is expected to be a celebration of their chemistry outside of BTS. Interestingly, a few days after the news of Jungkook's departure, one of HYBE's staff accidentally liked a tweet on X, Twitter, that read, "Sometimes, friendships in this industry last only until your visions no longer align." Although the like was immediately removed, the screenshot was already widely circulated and sparked a new wave of speculation. Many began to wonder, has this project cracked from the very beginning? Did Taehyung and Jungkook actually have different visions since their first meeting with the creative team, and the meeting without Jungkook was just the tip of the iceberg? Or is this all just an exaggerated miscommunication by the media and drama-hungry fans? On the other hand, some sources say that after this incident, communication between Jungkook and Taehyung was almost non-existent. Even backstage at BTS events, they seem to interact more with other members than with each other. Meanwhile, the camera that usually captures the sweet moments of Taehyung is now like losing material because the two are more standing far apart. HYBE is now in a difficult position. They must maintain the good name of both artists, maintain the stability of BTS, internal relations, while ensuring that future projects are not affected by this conflict. However, over time, signs of misunderstanding began to appear. Jungkook, who who was a perfectionist in musical details, spent hours in the studio fiddling with arrangements. Taehyung, on the other hand, focused more on strengthening visual and aesthetic concepts, often requesting changes to set designs. Even when the music was not yet fully completed, in the beginning, these differences were still considered healthy, two complementary perspectives. But over time, their schedules began to clash. Jungkook several times felt that his idea was put on hold due to waiting for the visual to be approved. Taehyung was frustrated that shooting was delayed, waiting for Jungkook to finish recording. The first peak of tension occurred 3 months before the end of the contract. In a review session, the creative team proposed the idea of major changes to their main song. This idea came from a separate meeting that only Taehyung and the visual producer attended. Jungkook, who had only heard about it in the review session, looked shocked. He tried to keep the original version of the song, but the majority vote was in favor of the proposed changes. Although he eventually agreed, there was a clear tension between the two. Nevertheless, they continued to work, at least professionally. HYBE's documentary camera is still recording their interactions, although the crew knows that the smiles on camera are different now than before. And then came the day that became the turning point of everything, the day of the final meeting at HYBE headquarters. This meeting is scheduled to decide on the final details before the project is officially announced to the public. Jungkook knows how important this moment is. He waited for confirmation of the schedule from the project manager, but the message he was waiting for did not come. When the meeting time came, he still hoped that team would call or send a short message. But the opposite happened. Photos of the meeting began to circulate on social media. Taehyung can be seen sitting at the meeting table, discussing with the creative team, signing documents, even laughing a little between chats. There's no Jungkook there. Several eyewitnesses in HYBE's office said that as soon as the photos appeared on the timeline, Jungkook's face turned pale. He didn't say anything, just stared at the screen for a long time. That night, he locked himself in the studio, turned off all notifications, and wrote a note in his personal journal. The note, according to a close source, contained only one sentence: "If I were not needed, I would not force myself." The decision to withdraw from the project was announced internally 2 days later. HYBE tries to talk it over, but Jungkook is steady. He even declined an offer to continue contributing as a composer on the project. Meanwhile, Taehyung remained silent. Only once did he mention Jungkook in public, with a cautious tone. Sometimes we have to make decisions that not everyone understands. The remarks sparked wild interpretations among fans. Some took it as self-defense, others read it as an admission that he had deliberately not informed Jungkook. HYBE finally issued an official statement, but as usual, it did more to build a diplomatic fence than to give an unequivocal answer. They emphasized that the professional and personal relationship of the artists is maintained, but the public can see with their own eyes that the distance between them is becoming more noticeable, and here we are now, in the midst of endless speculation. Is this just a big misunderstanding that can be fixed with one honest conversation? Or is this the beginning of a permanent crack in the relationship of two people who were once considered inseparable? As soon as the news of Jungkook's departure from the project with Taehyung emerged, the K-pop world immediately turned into a stage of endless speculation. Major media in Korea such as Dispatch, Sports Chosen, to international outlets such as Billboard and Rolling Stone Asia began to report this issue with titles that provoked curiosity on social media. The keywords Taekook, Jungkook withdraws, and HYBE meeting immediately topped trending in more than 20 countries, including South Korea, Japan, the United States, Brazil, and Indonesia. Armies around the world are divided. Some army supporters of Jungkook created the hashtag #StandWithJungkook, claiming that he was the victim of negligence or even neglect in the project. They demanded that HYBE provide a more transparent clarification. For them, Jungkook's decision to step down was not an impulsive act, but rather a form of self-defense from a situation that did not appreciate his contribution. But on the other hand, Taehyung's supporters responded with the hashtag #ProtectTaehyung, stating that people are too quick to judge without knowing the real story. They claimed that the meeting was an extra meeting decided on the spur of the moment by the creative team, and Taehyung did not intend to exclude Jungkook. Some even accuse the